change your heart, change your life, change the planet.
Hey everybody, it's Tim Van Orden, coming to you from the Little Pond Snowmobile Trail in Woodford, Vermont. I'm out doing a Bigfoot stride in my big boots. And essentially what that means is that I'm walking in kind of like a halfway lunge position. So I'm low to the ground, I'm not fully upright, but my quads are bent and I'm extending into a pretty long stride, and it kind of looks like Bigfoot in the old videos with the arm hanging down and the big long lopey stride. And I do this because it's very low impact, because it's not going to mess with my soleus, which is inflamed, and because it's one hell of a workout. And it keeps the camera really steady. That's how I discovered it. When I was out filming the trails with my camera, I mimicked what I saw in Los Angeles when camera people would walk with the camera, and I called it a duck walk then, but they would get really low and steady, heel to toe, heel to toe. So that's what I do now on a lot of my workouts, because even though I'm walking, you can hear me breathing. It's hard work because I'm in a half lunge the entire time. So, in today's episode of what I've learned, 20 years of being vegan, 12 years of being a vegan athlete, we're going to talk about exercise. We're going to talk about workouts. And we're going to talk about how I now view my workouts through a completely different lens, and I view myself through a very different lens as I engage in these workouts. And I want to open up this conversation by talking about watches. I'm wearing a Garmin 630, which is a GPS watch that tracks my distance, my elevation, my heart rate, my stride rate, all manner of data or metrics related to me being out here. And you see people just going crazy over all this data, especially in the wired world that we now live in, or the increasingly wired world. And if you go to a site like Training Peaks, which some of my clients use, you can just go nuts looking at data. And I find it to be really unhelpful and distracting. And I think it's taking us away from really getting full value and benefit from movement and exercise. So I'm going to tell you why I've come to that conclusion and why I'm still wearing this watch. So first I want to talk about the term watch. It used to be that human beings would move through the world and they wouldn't know where they were in an exact sense. They wouldn't know when they were in an exact sense, and time was quite relative. It's really the advent of the train that we had to have times that were consistent. That the time in my town had to be the same as the time in your town, so that we knew when to get to the train station to pick up a train, or when to get there to pick up someone or something that was about to be dropped off. But prior to modern rail networks, every town had its own clock. So the time was relative to that particular town. And this is great because things worked on a more micro level. But now that we live in a global economy, everybody's got to know what time it is in a so-called absolute sense, in an atomic sense. How long is it taking this cesium atom to decay or vibrate? And we can know time down to the billionth of a second. Great for physics, great for modern technology, but great for GPS systems, not so great for human beings. And that's my focus now, is who I am being as a human. Or more importantly, how I am being as a human. So this term watch, again. When we got watches and there were railroads and things started to get linked together and people wanted to meet each other at a certain time in a certain place, we began to look at our watches. We began to watch them. And time became important. And suddenly you could waste time. And it could be measured how much time you were wasting. And sometimes there was an external arbiter saying that this time should be spent a certain way, like school. You're going to sit in this classroom for X amount of time, and if you're not doing X amount of work in X amount of time, you're wasting time. But to the student, from their perspective, the class might be a waste of time, and they would watch the clock on the wall. And my God, would it go slowly? When is this class going to be over? When is my torture going to end? So we became clock watchers. And that's advanced up to the present day, to the point where people don't know where they are without a watch, or without a GPS system, without their phone. People don't know how far they've gone without looking at their watch, without looking at their data. They don't know what their heart rate was without looking at their watch, or how fast they're running, or any other number of metrics that can be measured by looking at a watch. And you could say, well, that's because these things are really hard to grok. They're hard to know accurately. What is your exact heart rate? What is your exact speed? It's important to know these things. What's your exact location? How much elevation did you climb in that run? I need to know exactly, because there's a contest on Strava and I've got to do 10,000 feet this month, so I need to know exactly how many feet I climbed. And the thing is that even though it seems that our watches, which we watch so intently now, are giving us accurate, perfect, empirically flawless data, it's simply not true. Go do the same run in the woods on the same trail 10 times. You get 10 different differences. You'll get 10 different elevations, and you might run it in the exact same time, but you'll get different paces. So GPS is not accurate. It's close. It's close enough. But it's not 100% accurate. It doesn't need to be. And heart rate. You could be in a race and your heart rate could be 165, and based on looking at your watch and knowing what a heart rate of 165 means, you could say this is a good pace for this distance. I just have to maintain this. But then suddenly the race falls apart. You can be in another race and you see 175 and you're like, ooh, I better slow down, that's too high. And you have the race of your life. So these numbers, first of all, they're simply not that accurate, because the chest strap or the wrist lights don't give you a perfectly accurate readout of your heart, nor does your heart beat in a perfect way. Your heart is more erratic than you may realize. And so we don't have a perfect rhythm in our heart. We don't have perfect feedback from our chest and wrist into the mechanism. The satellites are doing some extrapolations and they're fudging, and they misinterpret things that are next to you in the trail, and or corners. They don't get all the movements. So these data points that we have become so addicted to, that we can't live without, we can't train without, they're really not that accurate to begin with. But yet we watch them as if our life depends on them. They mean so much. So why am I wearing a watch? So that I can show others where I go, mostly. If you follow me on Strava, you'll see my training is pretty sporadic. It's ridiculously slow by most people's estimation, and you can probably see my pace right now. This is, if you look at my arm swinging, like this is how fast I'm going. You can hear my feet. My data is probably going to show I'm doing a 22 to 25 minute mile, but I'm breathing. And I don't have my heart rate monitor on because I don't care. To me, these workouts are about finding myself, not having some satellite find me, not having a watch find me, not having a computer app find me and tell me who I am. I don't want to look to Strava to find out who I am, or to see how many people like my workout on Strava to know whether the workout was good enough, which is what we're being trained to do by the makers and purveyors of this technology. I want to find out who I am in my body, in this place. Who am I right here, right now? If I get too tuned into the watch, I will miss out on what's actually happening within me. And I won't be present to the environment that I'm moving through. And I won't be present to what's going on in my body. I won't learn about myself. I will rely on external cues, and often they're wrong. Well, they're always wrong to some degree, but often they're really wrong, or more importantly, they're misrepresentative of what you're capable of. And you don't know what you're capable of because you haven't really been tuning into you. You've been tuning into what technology or a social network is saying about you. That's not you. You're the one out here doing the work. You're not some abstract concept that can be reconstructed by looking at data points. That's not you. You're the one doing the work. And the abstract consciousness that you think is you is just floating along in the midst of a body doing the work. But it's all linked. You can't really separate them, except when you're sitting in front of your computer, and then they feel very separate because you're no longer present to that body. And you really weren't present to the body in the workout. In fact, you were trying to avoid it. You're looking at your watch to tell you when it's okay to stop, when it's okay to slow down, when it's okay to speed up. You're avoiding the feelings in your body for the most part. And when I say you, I'm speaking very generally. I'm not picking on you. Hold on. Drop my other glove. All right. So, what I want to do as a person, an athlete, to me it's the same thing. I don't really like to distinguish between athletes and people because we're all athletes. We're just either underutilized as athletes or we're fully self-expressed as an athlete. But we have these bodies for a reason, and they're not to sit. We didn't grow a body to just use it to sit. We have joints and muscles that move us for a reason. We have metabolism for a reason. We digest food for a reason. And it's not so that we can just move to the next place where we can sit and entertain ourselves. That food is fuel, but it's become entertainment. So, I digress a bit, but not really. I want to learn who I am and where I am. And I don't need my watch to tell me that. The workout is done when I'm done. The workout is done when I have reached some point where I am shifted. I've come out here, I had a conversation with my body and with the world, and I'm content with that conversation. It went well. And the conversation in the beginning is often tenuous. it's a conflict. I'm in my car, sitting often, afraid to open the door because of what awaits. Like right now, charging up a mountain in my boots, in a half lunge position. But once I get out the door and I see that my body only wants to be gentle with me, it doesn't want to hurt me. But my abstraction, the part of me that's worried about the data on my watch, the part of me that's worried about the social network that's going to be looking at this data, they're going to be judging me. That part of me, it's like, dude, you better step up. You better man up, bro. You gotta go out there and just do it. Come on, let's see some David Goggins, yo. David Goggins really freaks me out. I think that man is incredibly unhealthy, and it frightens me that he has become a role model for people. If you read his stuff, it's not a recipe for mental health, what he's telling people to do or what he's doing to himself. It's a punishment. It's an abstraction in him that's punishing him. So we all have that in us to some degree. I know David Goggins because that's me. That's how I've been most of my life. Someone who tortured themselves. Someone who was never good enough. And I'd go out and punish myself because I hated my body. I hated myself, and I wanted it to suffer for not being like other bodies, for not measuring up to some standard that my abstraction, my narrative, deemed essential to my worth. But now, it's a great thing about getting old, I guess, but it's really getting old and doing a hell of a lot of reading and then putting that reading into practice in places like this. You don't just read books, you say, okay, this is what this person is saying. Let me go out in the midst of discomfort in a challenging environment and put that to the test. Does it work? Maybe. I don't know. Let's try it. Let's try it a lot, because maybe the first time we gave up too soon. Let's try it 1,000 times. Then we'll know. Then we'll have some good data. But back to this idea of your body being gentle with you, and you needing to understand that your body grows stronger when you're gentle with it, and that any conversation that you have about being afraid to engage physically, being afraid to engage in a workout, exists in the midst of an abstraction, in the midst of a narrative, in the midst of a concept of who you should be, who you think you really are, your authentic self, and the body that you're stuck in. And there's a disconnect, there's a misalignment. I'm not where I should be, and therefore you reject where you are. And so we punish ourselves, we look to data to try to figure out what our body is capable of, because our abstraction, our narrative identity doesn't want to talk to the body. It doesn't want to engage in the body. It doesn't want to be in the body. It hates the body, which is why it's doing the workout, to dominate the body, to show the body who's boss, to whip that body in shape for summer so it can take its shirt off and wear the bathing suit, whatever that is, or post some Instagram photos of your weight loss or how much muscle you gained. That's common because that's what brains are built to do. And what I'm talking about is, it kind of goes against what brains are built to do. There's I won't say a backdoor, and I won't say a glitch, but brains are adaptable, so we can also do what I'm talking about, which is discover ourselves in the midst of ourselves, rather than trying to be defined by external cues or external data, or inside of an abstraction. We can actually be in our bodies and feel our bodies. And you know what I'm talking about when you think about love or attraction or lust. it seems like your abstraction collapses into your body in those moments. And your body feels amazing and your mind feels amazing, and there's an alignment. Like when you lust after someone and they lust after you, and you look at each other and grab each other, and it's a moment where your abstraction falls into your body and fully gets to experience the wonders and pleasures of being a body. And the other person hopefully is doing the same thing. But most of the time we don't see how we are our bodies, and we don't take advantage of them. We don't live inside of them. We punish them, we reject them, we sit on them. We say, oh, I'll deal with that thing called the body later when I've got time. I just don't feel like it right now. I've been working so hard, sitting around. And I'm not trying to shame you. Please don't hear that. This is what I hear from people. So I hear it from myself too. So back to the car and me opening the door afraid of the conversation that's about to ensue. But my body is not going to be yelling at me. I just simulate what my body's going to be doing. Like, oh man, that's going to hurt. Well, wait a minute. Is my body waiting to punish me? When I start my watch and begin to slog, is my body saying, come on, punk, I'm going to whoop your ass? No, it's like, all right, what do you want to do? You want to move? You want to stand still? What do you want? Just tell me what you want to do. I'll do it. And once you get me started, I'll take over. Don't worry about it. Just show me where you want me to go and I'll take charge. But we project onto our bodies. We project onto the moment, onto the workout, and say it's going to be a certain way, and our body's not going to be able to keep up. Or especially if you're working out with other people, there's always a comparison. People don't like running with me because they think that I run too fast in my workouts and there's no way they could keep up with me. And clearly I'm running way too fast. Look how far that tree is just vanishing into the distance behind me. So, but to me, when I'm training with someone, which is rare, it's never about a comparison. If I'm training with someone, it's because I want to be with them. I want to experience them. If I didn't want that, I would train alone. It's not about domination or beating or proving. It's about improving. So when you're thinking about working out, outside, I think that's an important component. Realize that that's a conversation between your narrative self and your body. And your narrative self is going to predict that that conversation is not going to go well, that there's going to be conflict. But that's not true unless the narrative self creates the conflict. Just like in a relationship, any relationship, you have a relationship with your body. You also have relationships with people. And how many times have you wanted to talk to your boss or a coworker or a spouse or anyone, and you were gearing up for a fight? But wait a minute. Is the other person there in the room with you when you're gearing up for the fight, or are you alone with a simulated version of them in your head? And in your head, in that simulation, you're telling them how it is, and you're getting yourself ready, you're rehearsing, you're preparing for the slings and arrows and the blows. And you're going to tell them, so you gear up, you get all that adrenaline flowing and the cortisol and the other hormones that get you ramped up to engage, and your pain response is dampened, and blood flow to the extremities increases, and your intelligence drops because the prefrontal cortex, your cognitive engine, is getting less blood, and you go through this whole chemical cycle that shifts your physiology and therefore your thinking. And then you go and you meet that person, and now you're ready. You're ready for war. But that person may be in a completely different space because they weren't actually in that simulation with you. You just thought they were. And they may be blindsided, like, what are you talking about? What? I did what? You thought I said what? No! I didn't call you. I was busy. My phone died. Why are you freaking out? Well, I'm freaking out because when I simulated why you didn't return my call, it's because you were cheating on me and you were with somebody, and so we end up simulating worst case scenarios and then acting as if they really happened. And then when we meet that person, we treat them as if it really happened, and we're already revved up for war because our physiology has shifted into the fight state. If it had shifted into the flight state, we will avoid the conversation, which is probably worse, because then we avoid them and we know that we're right. We know that they did those things, but it was all just a simulation. So why am I saying this in a video about working out? Because we have a relationship with our body, and we do the same thing. We simulate our bodies. We predict our bodies. We predict how they're going to respond. We predict what they're capable of. And then we imagine what the consequences are. Oh, I'm not going to like that, not going to be good, or it's going to be embarrassing. So we have a conversation with our body in our mind without actually ever being in our body and trying it out, without putting our body to the test and saying, well, what can you do? Let's find out. Let's go out there into the snow and, I don't know, let's just see what happens. No expectations. Let's find out. Let's warm up. Let's give ourselves some space to really find out who we are. Just like a relationship. You think you know somebody in the beginning because you're attracted to them and that's all they need to know. Oh my God, they're amazing. 6 months in, you're like, holy cow, I know a lot more about this person now. They're not really that amazing. How do I get out of this relationship without hurting their feelings? Kind of like that with your body too, but the opposite. The longer I'm out here today, the more I'll know about my body. The better that conversation will go. And the better I'm going to feel. So we get better as athletes when we let go of the data. When we let go of watching something that's watching us and letting the watch tell me who I am, rather than having a conversation with my body, in the midst of movement, and discovering who I am, and realizing that conversation takes a while. It doesn't happen in an instant, and that my body is not out to punish me. It doesn't want to hurt me. It doesn't want to give me pain. But it will give me pain if I ask it to do things that it doesn't want to do. So start slowly. Start small. Let the conversation build. Don't jump to fourth base in the first 30 seconds. So I'm going to keep slogging along here, and I hope there's some food for thought there. And I'll see you soon. Peace.